The girl looked at the very first rays of the morning sun, and in the very next moment, she burned into ashes. In this world, 99% of the population were vampires. The children who had been infected at a very young age never managed to grow up. But even more terrifying than that was the severe shortage of food. By 2019, only a handful of people remained who possessed natural immunity and were still normal humans. Most of them were kept imprisoned so that their blood could be used to supply vampires. Even then, there was a massive blood shortage. The gap between rich and poor vampires continued to grow rapidly. Wealthy and powerful vampires could at least survive on blood-mixed coffee distributed through night centers. But poor vampires who could not reach those facilities gradually began transforming into something else entirely. To solve the crisis, Edward worked as a blood specialist, trying to create a substitute for blood. On one hand, he wanted to save his own species, and on the other, he wanted to save the humans who were being treated like living blood bags. However, the synthetic blood experiments were not going well. In the presence of corporate executives, Edward injected the latest product into a volunteer. The very next second, the man died right there on the spot. The result completely devastated Edward. He had never consumed human blood. He survived only on animal blood to satisfy his needs. But his research showed that if vampires stayed away from human blood for too long, their intelligence would gradually begin to deteriorate. Eventually, they would transform into savage creatures driven only by an uncontrollable thirst for blood. While driving home, Edward noticed signs of change beginning to appear in his own ears. For a brief moment, he lost concentration. His car drifted out of its lane and collided with an oncoming vehicle. Edward immediately got out to check whether the people in the other car were injured. To his surprise, he discovered that they were actually humans. At that very moment, nearby police officers heard the crash and came running toward the scene. Edward quickly hid the humans inside his car and somehow managed to escape before anyone discovered them. After finally reaching home, he was just about to get some rest when his brother suddenly arrived to celebrate his birthday. Edward had not seen him for several months. When his brother noticed Edward's worsening condition, he pulled out a large bottle of human blood as a birthday gift. On the market, it was worth nearly $1 million. But Edward wanted nothing to do with it. He had always been against drinking human blood. While his brother had become a hunter of humans, Edward remained committed to his principles. Without hesitation, he poured the entire bottle straight down the drain. Furious, his brother grabbed the bottle and smashed it against the wall, causing blood to splatter everywhere. The scent of the blood attracts a nearby subsider. The creature suddenly appears and begins licking the blood from the wall. Realizing the danger, Frankie grabs a knife to defend himself. Subsiders are extremely dangerous and capable of killing vampires. The creature attacks, but Frankie manages to fight back and eventually kills it. During the investigation, a ring found on the creature's hand reveals a shocking truth. The subsider was once Edward's gardener. Further examination shows strange marks on the body. Investigators conclude that the gardener had been drinking his own blood due to the blood shortage. After weeks of self-consumption and starvation, he eventually transformed into a subsider. After the investigation ends, an unexpected visitor arrives. It is the same girl who fired the arrow during the car accident. Her name is Audrey. While hiding inside Edward's vehicle during the escape, Audrey examined his identification card and discovered that he was a blood specialist. Believing he could help her, she tracked him down and arranged a secret meeting. Audrey hands Edward an address and tells him to come alone before quickly leaving. She possesses information that could change everything. According to her, a cure exists for the disease that transformed humanity into vampires. Meanwhile, Edward's boss continues pushing the company in a different direction. Creating artificial blood no longer seems profitable because wealthy vampires have no interest in substitutes. Real human blood remains their only desire, and they are willing to pay enormous amounts of money for it. The situation continues to worsen. Human beings are becoming extinct, artificial blood has failed, subsiders are multiplying, and the powerful seem more interested in profit than survival. Audrey's claim about a possible cure suddenly becomes far more important than anyone could have imagined. Edward now understands that his true mission is not simply to create artificial blood but to save humanity itself. Determined to learn more, he travels to the address Audrey had given him. At the location, Audrey introduces him to a man who was once a vampire but has somehow become human again. Before they can discuss much further, Edward's brother suddenly arrives and captures both of them. Earlier that night, when Audrey had visited Edward, his brother had secretly overheard their entire conversation. The situation quickly becomes dangerous as military forces begin moving toward the area. Audrey and the former vampire strike Edward's brother, knocking him unconscious before escaping. However, the military immediately attacks Audrey's vehicle. Edward quickly rescues them by putting them into his own car and driving away. The former vampire then takes Edward to a river and explains how he became human again. He reveals that he used to work as a mechanic who specialized in replacing the protective mirrors and glass used by vampires. One day while traveling he was involved in a serious car accident. The crash threw him from the vehicle and exposed him directly to sunlight. His entire body caught fire before he fell into a nearby river. After surviving the ordeal, he discovered something impossible. Sunlight no longer harmed him. Somehow, he had transformed back into a normal human. Eventually, they arrive at a hidden location where several humans are living safely. The place belongs to Audrey's parents, who use it to produce alcohol. There, Edward begins examining the former vampire's blood, hoping to discover what changes occurred during his exposure to sunlight. After conducting several tests, Edward reaches an astonishing conclusion. The transformation back into a human appears to be connected to intense exposure to sunlight followed by survival. For the first time, a possible cure exists. Meanwhile, conditions inside the city continue to deteriorate. Human blood supplies are running dangerously low. Humans are being drained of blood and killed, yet even that is not enough to meet demand. Coffee shops that once served beverages containing 20% blood now contain only 5%. As blood becomes increasingly scarce, vampires struggle to control their hunger. Anger, desperation, and violence begin spreading throughout society. At the same time, a human man and woman travel toward Audrey's safe location, hoping to find protection. Before reaching their destination, soldiers capture them. These soldiers specialize in hunting humans and delivering them to vampires. Realizing the soldiers may eventually discover the safe house, Audrey decides to evacuate everyone. The survivors are sent to another secure location while Audrey remains behind with Edward and the former vampire. The three of them decide to test the cure directly. Edward repeats the exact process that transformed the former vampire. He deliberately exposes himself to intense sunlight. His body immediately begins burning. After enduring the agony, he cools himself with water. The experiment succeeds. Edward becomes human once again. Not long afterward, soldiers arrive searching for them. Fortunately, Edward and his companions manage to hide inside a large water tank, avoiding detection. Among the soldiers is Edward's brother. During the search, he encounters a young woman who turns out to be the daughter of Edward's boss. She had run away from her father because she wanted to live a normal human life instead of remaining a vampire. Her father, however, refuses to accept her decision. He orders Edward's brother to infect her and turn her back into a vampire so she can remain immortal and stay with him forever. Following the order, Edward's brother bites her and transforms her into a vampire. Even after the transformation, she refuses to drink human blood. Instead, she desperately drinks blood from her own wounds. Across the city, the blood shortage reaches catastrophic levels. Countless vampires begin transforming into subsiders. Chaos erupts everywhere as these monstrous creatures attack anything in their path. Military forces receive orders to capture and destroy them. Large numbers of subsiders are rounded up and exposed to sunlight, which burns them to death. Among those creatures is the daughter of Edward's boss. After refusing to consume human blood, she eventually transformed into a subsider herself. Seeing what happened to her fills Edward's brother with guilt and shame. Elsewhere, Edward travels with Audrey to the location where the remaining survivors had been sent. Upon arriving, they discover a horrifying scene. The humans have already been attacked and slaughtered by vampires. Running out of options, Edward contacts a trusted colleague who previously worked alongside him. When the man sees Edward as a human, he is completely shocked. Before they can continue their conversation, military forces suddenly attack. Audrey is captured and taken away. The betrayal becomes obvious almost immediately. Edward's trusted colleague was the one who informed the military. His motive is purely selfish. He had spent years trying to create artificial blood and wanted all the recognition for himself. He could not allow Edward's discovery to overshadow his own work. Edward and Audrey's allies barely manage to escape. They hide inside a garage, hoping to avoid further pursuit. Soon afterward, Edward's brother finds them. At first, everyone believes he has come to arrest or kill them. Just before a fight breaks out, he explains that he wants to help. The tension disappears, but another problem quickly emerges. Starving from blood deprivation, Edward's brother suddenly attacks Audrey and begins drinking her blood. Edward immediately prepares to kill him with an arrow. Before he can fire, something unexpected happens. Edward's brother transforms into a human. At that moment, Edward finally understands the complete cure. The blood of former vampires who have become human carries the ability to reverse vampirism in others. With this knowledge, Edward willingly surrenders himself to his former boss. His goal is simple: save Audrey. Pretending to regret his actions, Edward claims that he wants to become a vampire again. His boss believes him and immediately begins drinking Edward's blood. The effect is instant. Edward's boss transforms into a human. The military personnel surrounding them then begin drinking his blood as well. One after another, they also become human. As Edward attempts to rescue Audrey, several soldiers move in to stop him. His brother steps forward to protect them. The soldiers attack him and begin drinking his blood. Just like before, they too become human. However, the man who betrayed Edward suddenly arrives and murders all of the newly transformed humans. His artificial blood project has finally succeeded, and he intends to become rich and powerful from it. A cure that turns vampires into humans would destroy everything he hopes to gain. Determined to protect his profits, he attempts to kill both Edward and Audrey. Before he can succeed, Audrey's companion attacks him with an arrow. The shot kills him, ending the threat once and for all. In the end, Edward, Audrey, and their remaining ally dedicate themselves to a new mission. Armed with the cure, they set out to transform every vampire back into a human and restore the world that was lost.